Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Tapaharine Sthapakaya Cha Dharmasya Sarva Dharma Swarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagatgurum Padapadme Tvayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhur. Okay, thank you all for coming. So today we begin Karma Yoga, Introduction to Karma Yoga. Now, I know this class was recently taken, but we're going to take it in a different way. And I think it's going to be different and a little bit unique as well. One sadhu said that of all the yogas, Jnana Yoga is often, the difficulty is often overestimated. And Karma and Bhakti Yoga, the difficulties are often underestimated. Let's think about that. Even in our monastic order, what is Karma Yoga? What is the ultimate goal of Karma Yoga? There's lots of differing views even between our sadhus. Some say that Swami Vivekananda, his Karma Yoga, is nothing but leads to Chitta Shuddhi, what all purification of mind, what all the past commentators have said. But Swami Bhajanandaji, the vice president of our order, one of them, in a class he taught me during training center on Karma Yoga, he mentioned no. He echoed Swami Vivekananda's words in a conversation with Sharat Chandra Chakrabarti. Karma Yoga is not just for purification of mind, it can lead to liberation. So people can go back and forth on that issue. And we'll look at it through different lenses as well. Now, just like in previous classes, the first thing I want to do is always, what is the first thing that we do when we take up any text, especially a text by Swami Vivekananda? We always go to the context. When was these lectures given? Where were they given? Who were they given to? When, who, where? Why were they given? So I did some research on that. Especially, I'm going to promote one book, Sister Gargi's Swami Vivekananda in the West, New Discoveries. This is volume 3. Let me just share one slide. Okay. I have to go back. Okay. Excuse me. Share. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Swami Vivekananda, let's look at the timeline of these lectures. He came, of course, to America in 1893. Then during the next few years, in fact, we can pull that up right here. In 1894, he began giving lectures on the East Coast. He spoke at Harvard, Greenacre Conference. He gave these series of lectures between December of 1895 and January of 1896 in New York. Now, before he gave these lectures, he had just come back from London. So he had been in America for more than 2 years, almost 2.5 years. So when he returned to New York from London, December 8th, 1895, he wrote to Sister Christine, one of his American disciples, I do not care for public lecturings at all, and I do not think they shall have any more public I shall not have any more public lectures charging admission. So Swamiji's mindset was a little bit different. he was searching for a more intimate audience. Another letter, December 10th of 1895. Dear Mrs. Bull, he writes, the difficulty in the way is I have begun to write in earnest as I want to finish some textbooks to form the basis of work when I am gone. I have to hurry through 4 little books before I go. Can anyone guess what these 4 books were? Yes, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. So that's the context. Swamiji gave these series of talks between December of 1895 and January of 1896 in New York. Now, another interesting thing is this, that when he had given these series of talks, I found this actually in Sister Gargi's book. If you can see what I put on the net right here, this is just, he didn't give them like one after another. It says every Wednesday he would give talks, Monday and morning, Wednesday evening, morning and evening, he would give classes December 11th and 18th on Jnana Yoga, 13th and 20th on Karma Yoga, 14th and 21st on Raja Yoga, and 16th and 23rd on Bhakti Yoga. Swamiji gave a total of 8 lectures on Karma Yoga, which forms the Karma Yoga talks book. So he gave these 2 talks December 13th and 20th, and also 2 talks in January. Now the next question is this. What was the audience that Swamiji was speaking to? I'll just close this now. Stop share. What was the audience Swamiji was speaking to? So, does anyone remember from Raja Yoga? Physicists, scientists, agnostics, Christians, Catholics, seances, spiritual faith healers. So that same audience is here as well. But in addition, he had what you call a specific audience he was giving this talks to. In fact, many of his Western disciples, they were present. They included Goodwin, Swamiji's right-hand man, his stenographer. One Leon Landsberg, who later became Swami Kripanandaji. Sarah Farmer. So many Westerners, Americans became inspired by these talks. Sister Nivedita, if you look at Swamiji's method of training Sister Nivedita when she came to India, it's based on Karma Yoga. So during that time that this audience was listening to Swamiji, as we'll see, that same audience was there, and for the most part they were middle class, upper middle class, and they had just experienced something called the Great Panic of 1893 in America. It was almost like a stock market crash. So many of them had lost lots of their savings. So they were they struggled for wealth, but they were feeling a little bit disillusioned at materialism. This was the audience that Swami Vivekananda was speaking to. Again, keep this all in mind before we go into the text. That's the context, okay? Another thing is, let's open up the share screen again. Can they see it? Okay. Another thing I want to discuss is this. Now, Karma Yoga is something, because we have to know the different theories of Karma Yoga that are in the Gita. Swamiji will cite them. In fact, when we're going through the passages, in addition to asking who is he speaking to, which approach of the Gita is he mentioning? In the Gita, many of you, there's actually 3 or 4 different approaches, at least. And they're based on corresponding yogas. So one of them is, of course, karmane vadikaraste ma phalishu kadachana. So your right is to work only, but to never its fruits. Which audience would be attracted to this teaching of karma yoga in the West? Of the different classes of people that I have mentioned. The agnostics. You can say today what we call it the spiritual but not religious. That they have, they didn't have, agnostic means that they don't deny that God exists, but they're not convinced. Again, so you'll see that in the lectures on karma yoga. Some of these Gita slokas will be addressed towards them. Another one, yoga staf kudu karmani sangam tektva dhananjaya. So perform your duty, but do it abandoning all attachment to success or failure. So that equanimity. So who is Swamiji addressing there? Again, you could say the agnostics. You can also say the dhyanis, the Raja Yogas, who like to keep that mind in a state of equanimity. And that's another approach as we go through the lectures. A third approach, this Tattvaviddu Gita 3.28, Tattvaviddu Mahabaho Guna Karma Vibhagayo Guna Guneshu Vartanta Iti Matva Nasajjate. So, a knower of truth knows that it's the gunas acting upon the gunas, but does not become attached. There's other Gita slokas, Prakrite Kriya Manani Gunai Karmani Sarvashaha, many slokas. What aspect is this of karma yoga? Which yoga does it align with? Sakshi, this path of the knower, Jnana Yoga. So there will be, in that audience, remember what Swamiji said in the preface of Raja Yoga? He said in the preface, each soul is potentially divine. The whole is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship, or psychic control, or philosophy, by one or more, or all of these, and be free. So this is what, when Swamiji is talking about karma yoga, okay? It's just not karma yoga. This is the point I want to make again and again. Just like in Raja Yoga, he's bringing all the different yogas into play. In other words, the head, hand, and the other H? Heart, yes. The 3 H's. He wants it to become something, and he wants us to become integrated human beings. And the last one, this yat karoshi irashnashi yat juhoti dadasi yat. So whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, whatever austerities you perform, do them as an offering unto me. What karma yoga is this? What would you guys say? Bhakti. Keep these all in mind, okay, as we go through it. Now, there's an additional yoga that's not mentioned in the Gita. Swami Bhajananji said this is Swami Vivekananda's unique contribution to karma yoga that none of the other commentators had mentioned. What is that? He actually got it from his teacher, Ramakrishna, Shiva Gyane Jiva Sheva. This idea of knowing oneself as God and serving that God in each and every soul in this universe. And this was Swami Vivekananda's unique contribution. That's not mentioned actually. And we'll talk about this later on. There's actual proof of it. We've actually had sadhus in our order, not counting direct disciples of Holy Mother, and even some recent sadhus. They've demonstrated that this path of karma yoga, that this concept can lead to jivan mukta. Brahma Jnana. Okay, so another thing before we start, because my ultimate goal from this is that each of you, after these classes are over, you can pick up this text of Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, and you can read it for yourself. As long as you have this mindset, context, this Gita framework, and Swamiji's own unique contributions. And the final thing is practical relevance. That's the third aspect. So context, Gita, and the third is practical relevance. Just like I mentioned in Raja Yoga, when Swamiji taught Raja Yoga in 1895, 1896, at that time, compared to now, it was not so difficult to concentrate. At that time, audience members could sit for 3 to 4 hours at a stretch without batting an eye, listening to a lecture. At that time, lectures were the source of entertainment. Can you imagine that? Now it's like even after 1 minute, we get the itch to check our phone. So, I raised that issue in Raja Yoga. Concentration is not the main thing now, is attention. This is what psychologists, neurologists say, physiologists. We check our cell phone on average, according to research studies, more than 300 times an hour. So our main is attention. Similarly, what are the challenges in Karma Yoga? It's so easy to say, work without attachment. But I challenge, that even anyone who does a great work, afterwards they might sometimes talk, remember what I did there, I did this, I did that, I built this big building. That I comes in. It gets us thinking about it. What is Karma Yoga? And its difficulty. I think what we're going to learn through Swami Vivekananda's going through his text, through his words, how subtle and difficult it is. Swamiji said in one place, some of you may have read it, that, let me stop sharing here. That I've met maybe 1 or 2 people in the entire world who could really be like a King Janaka, like Nishkama Karma. But everyone I meet almost says, yes, Swamiji, I do that as well. I can work without attachment. So these are the things that we have to think about in our own life. How difficult these ideas are, and what can we do? Okay, so now let me see, 2 people raised a comment here. Not hearing any sound. Okay, I hear you now. Okay, thank you. Okay, now let's just turn to the text now. And those of you, please who want to continue the class, please bring this Karma Yoga. And now I'm just going to start reading. And those of you online, if you have the book, please start. We're starting with chapter 1. Karma and its effect on yoga. Okay. So chapter 1, the word karma is derived from the Sanskrit kri, to do. All actions and karma. Technically, this word also means the effects of actions. In connection with metaphysics, it sometimes means the effects. So that's interesting. He's challenging us even, what do we mean by karma? It can mean actions, karma phalam. It can also mean effects of actions. There's another part where Swamiji said karma means desserts. Desserts, not like rashagola. Desserts mean what you deserve. What you deserve, that you get. Okay, so Swamiji continues. But in Karma Yoga, we simply have to do with the word karma as meaning work. So just work. The goal of mankind is knowledge. That is the one ideal placed before us by Eastern philosophy. Pleasure is not the goal of man, but knowledge. Pleasure and happiness come to an end. It is a mistake to suppose that pleasure is the goal. Now, see, this is why context is so important. If you're living in India, okay, that's, Swamiji, we understand that. Kano ida bolchen, kano. Why are you saying this? We know that what are the four goals of life? Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. But in the West, for example, the American Constitution, there it is said, what is the goal? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You got my point. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, both at the societal level as well as the individual level. So I'm just giving that context to you. Let's continue. The cause of all the miseries we have in the world is that men foolishly think pleasure to be the ideal to strive for. After a time, man finds that it is not happiness, but knowledge towards which he is going, and that both pleasure and pain are great teachers, and that he learns as much from evil as from good. This is really interesting. Again, this is something that mainly, I think people living in India, mainly Marinat, will have an idea of this. But Swamiji's audience in the West, one example is this Madame Calvé. She was a famous opera singer. And she mentioned she had just lost her daughter. Her daughter was burned alive in a fire. She came to meet Swamiji. She had heard about him. She was in desperate conditions. When she entered, Swamiji just read her mind. He understood what she was going through. So from that aspect, he came to understand the suffering. Even in his own life, even in India, how much suffering he went through. He's actually, this is also, what he's saying is also autobiographical, first-hand experience. Continue. As pleasure and pain pass before his soul, they have upon it different pictures. And the result of these combined impressions is what is called man's character. Now, going back, Swamiji uses this idea of knowledge. Pleasure is not the goal, but knowledge. So he's introducing something that it's not really there normally in Western society, forget West, even East as well. How do we think of knowledge? Do we think of it as awakening, or do we think of it as accolades, as a means through which we acquire accolades, as which we acquire name and fame, as which we acquire self-validation, approval? Look at my degrees. I'm a PhD, a Juris Doctorate. I went to Harvard, I went to this school. How do we look at knowledge? So Swamiji is saying here that knowledge is not something that is just a means to an end. It itself is an end. Okay. Then Swamiji continues, if you take the character of any man, it is really but the aggregate of tendencies, the sum total bent of his mind, and you will find that misery and happiness are equal factors in the formation of that character. And then Swamiji says, that in many cases, he finds that misery is a much greater teacher than happiness. How many of us here agree with that statement? Let's just sometimes think about that. Sometimes like the blows that we receive in life, and Swamiji is going to talk about that. What do the blows do? They could awaken. In fact, Swamiji is they could awaken. In fact, sometimes people say about Karma Yoga, Maharaj, I wish I didn't go. I went to do some Sheva in the ashram today. So many conflicts were there. I wish I would have been better if I just sat in my room and meditated. I would have been in peace. But what Karma Yoga is saying, and what Swamiji is going to talk about, no movement, action, By friction, it causes friction. And by that friction, that leads to knowledge. We have to probe, how does that take place? Do we really believe that? How many of us have that experience? Oh, I should not have done that. It's just better for me to be by myself. See, when we're by ourselves, the ego is protected. It's only with this friction that the ego comes out. What does Swamiji mean by action produces knowledge? We know study produces knowledge, the path of Jnana Yoga. What does he mean action produces knowledge? So let's just go down here. Now this knowledge again is inherent in man. No knowledge comes from outside. It is all inside. Again, this is a pretty bombastic claim to make in America at that time. At that time, they believed the mind was what? A blank slate. They don't believe in reincarnation. The mind's a blank slate. So that's why any knowledge that you get, a lot of that knowledge, say according to Freud and other psychologists, it comes from birth on, your trauma. Those form deep impressions in the mind, and those form the filtering of how you receive knowledge. So Western society believes that, I don't like to say normally think that knowledge is coming from outside. It's in the books, it's in the lectures, it's outside. So here Swamiji says it's inside out, not outside in. So Swamiji continues, what we say a man knows should in strict psychological language be what he discovers or unveils. Here he's speaking to the psychologist. Earlier the metaphysicist, here the psychologist. What a man learns is really what he discovers by taking the cover off his own soul, which is a mine of infinite knowledge. We have to think about that. He says that inside there's a mine of infinite knowledge. Now Swamiji is this next passage, Swamiji mentions Newton. Who is he speaking to here? What was one class of audience members at that time? The physicist, scientist sitting. Swamiji continues, we say Newton discovered gravitation. Was it sitting anywhere in a corner waiting for him? It was in his own mind. The time came and he found it out. So Swamiji is now using a popular, Newton is highly esteemed in Western society. And Isaac Newton, even now, one of the premier scientists who ever lived. So normally we think that the apple fell down. Where was that knowledge? Swamiji is saying, was it in the apple? So you see his method of argumentation, how he says, he cites an example, then he says all knowledge that the world has ever received comes from the mind. The infinite library of the universe is in your own mind. The external world is simply the suggestion. So now he's giving a new claim. Is that true? You say yes, but so when you're studying, the books you're studying, where is that knowledge that you receive? Is that coming from within or without? Within, okay. Okay. Okay, you don't have a mic, so okay. Yeah, okay, you could give them. Okay. 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 Yeah. Okay. We don't have a mic. The audience is online too, so we don't have a mic in, so we'll just continue right now. It's just a question. We'll do question and answer afterwards, but the mic is not there. So okay. So yes, the ideas were contemplation. So initially there's something from outside, and afterwards it comes inside. So Swamiji says the falling of an apple gave the suggestion to Newton, and he studied his own mind. He rearranged all the previous links of thought in his mind and discovered a new link among them, which he called the law of gravitation. Now, even at that time, there's another idea that they said Darwinism. Swamiji addresses that too, that the mind's not a blank slate, but what you have in the mind, those tendencies are passed by your ancestors. Okay? The tendencies are passed by ancestors, inherited. What would we say today? What would today's neuroscientists say? They say that there's this, I forgot the word, neuroplasticity, that that the mind does receive the information, it has gray matter, so there's some previous knowledge there, it rearranges the neural links, creates new synapses. So this was before neuroplasticity, but you can say how whatever Swamiji says, it does not contradict science, but yet as science evolves, it agrees with many of Swamiji's statements. I mentioned that many times also in Raja Yoga class. Swamiji continues, all knowledge therefore, secular or spiritual, is in the human mind. In many cases, it is not discovered, but remains covered. So I'm not asking us to disagree or agree. We just have to think about how much do we believe in that. Is knowledge within or without? And also, how do we look at knowledge if we're honest about ourselves? Do we look at it as something to be used to attain further validation, accolades? Or do we use it as something for self-exploration, self-knowledge, transformation? So usually the answer will be both, comparative. If we're honest, it's just not one or the other. Okay. So now then Swamiji, I'm just going to skip around. The Swamiji says, the man from whom this veil is being lifted is the more knowing man. The man of whom it lies thick is ignorant. So let's just go down a little bit. The Swamiji continues, like fire in a piece of flint, knowledge exists in the mind. Suggestion is the friction which brings it out. So with all our feelings and actions, our tears and our smiles, our joys and our griefs, our weeping and our laughter, our curses and our blessings, our praises and our blames, every one of these may be find, if we calmly study our own selves, as if been brought out from within ourselves by so many blows. Now, I think this is why what Swamiji is saying here is something I think for the most of us we don't get. This is why we struggle actually in the path of Karma Yoga. Most of us struggle. Almost all of us struggle actually. Why do we struggle? We think that this Karma Yoga exists. One part of it is dexterity. Karmashu Kaushalam, doing dexterity in action. That's only the external part of it though. There's another part of it more important. And that's the idea of intentionality. Lots of times we talk about, most of the talks you hear about Karma Yoga, Shiva Gyanik Jiva Sheva. And that's all you have to do. Just realize oneself as Brahman and see everyone else and serve everyone else as God. That's normally what we think. But that's not so simple. What we miss actually, and what we don't get, is this idea of intentionality, self-introspection. So what Swamiji is suggesting here, just like anything else, before engaging in action, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a devotee, a monk, whatever it may be, what is our intentionality? What is my goal? That's a question we have to ask ourselves. What is our proximate goal? Then, he's going to talk about this, as we engage in the action, it's really not possible to think about our mindset at that time. But afterwards, what you call the post-karma yoga, this is what many monks recommended. What did I do right today? And what did I do wrong towards that goal? You'll find that in any action, so many frictions will come out through the day. And what happens is our ego blocks it. Our ego blocks, we get reactions, we feel bad, we feel insulted. We react with anger, fear. And that's, as I mentioned before, and as Doctor knows, that's this sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight or freeze. And rarely do we access that parasympathetic nervous system, which is respond. It's difficult to do in real time. So Swamiji is talking about it there. If we calmly study our own selves, this is what he's saying. To have been brought out from within ourselves by so many blows. The result is what we are. All these blows taken together are called karma, work, action. Every mental and physical blow that is given to the soul, by which, as it were, fire is struck from it, and by which its own power and knowledge are discovered, is karma. Did you catch that point? We don't want blows. No, none of us. We don't like to get scolded. We don't like to be, hey, doctor, tapos ajke bhalo korini, bhalo bolini. You did not do something good today. How does our ego react? Honestly, that person, we practice Advaita Vedanta towards that person's gone out of existence for this life. In psychology, Swamiji knew about this. It's called the cognitive negative bias. That means that the mind is inherently geared towards fault finding, not only towards others, but towards ourselves. The example which I've repeated many times, your name? Devata. Devata, I can say 100 nice things about you. Kintu api eda korechen. That one thing that I say, that goes down to the, not even the mind, that goes down to the soul. We call it in the yoga, lila sharira linga, linga sharira, the subtle body. You know, it's like we have our street dogs outside. You ever see a dog with like a kukudak wound ache? If it has a wound, it licks it sometimes. Flies sometimes land on it. It's a sore spot. Similarly, when we get any blow, that becomes like this lifelong wound. And you know, what comes? Where is that idea of Shiva Gyanak Jiva Sheva? That's all good as long as the ego is protected. But once that insult is there, it's very difficult. Swamiji understands this. This is actually the difficulty with karma yoga. We don't talk about this enough. The idea of intentionality, we always just skip over that. Oh, just do Shiva Gyanak Jiva Sheva. Hari Baba, is that so simple? That's the most difficult and most subtle of things. That's why, like Swamiji says, Swamiji himself said, everyone says they're a King Janaka, but I've hardly met 2 or 3 people in my entire life who are actually that. And 2 of those people might have been Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna. So don't forget this idea of intentionality. And when we go about the day, what's our intention before we start? Afterwards. Swami Chidekananda said that. In evening meditation, how did I do during the day? Where is my compass going? Continue. There are certain works, Swamiji continues, which is, as it were, the aggregate, the sum total of a large number of smaller works. If we stand near the seashore and hear the waves dashing against the shingle, we think it is such a great noise. And yet we know that one wave is really composed of millions and millions of minute waves. Again, he's talking to the scientist, using the scientific language. I love that about Swamiji. He doesn't start from the metaphysical down to the material. He always starts. Do you see how beautiful this is? This is how we should all teach Vedanta, all of us in our conversations. He always starts from the material and raises it to the metaphysical. Each one of us these is making a noise. and yet we do not catch it. It is only when they become the big aggregate that we hear. Similarly, every pulsation of the heart is work. Now he brings that analogy, that example of waves to work itself. Certain kinds of work we feel and they become tangible to us. They are at the same time the aggregate of a number of small works. Now, this is where the insight, you can write this down afterwards or mark this if you have the Karma Yoga book. One of the jewels of this first chapter. If you really want to judge the character of a man, look not at his great performances. Every fool may become a hero at one time or another. Watch a man do his most common actions. Those are indeed the things which will tell you the real character of a great man. And we nod our heads at this. What would be the... You see that now what happens with social media. Somebody says something and everybody condemns the person. So afterwards the person says, he agrees with, it may not be what he wants to do, but he agrees with that position. He's forced by the, you can call it the tyranny of the majority. What the majority of people are saying, that's what he does. So if we look at our own lives, and we look at, say, athletes, actors, politicians, sometimes people do something great. In that moment, everybody's in front. They might have done something great. They might have done something very successful. So what we do from that one moment, we assume that that's their entire character. Afterwards, we find out that this is not the case. It might be a politician. It might be an actor. It might be an athlete. It might be somebody, usually it's somebody famous. Afterwards, we find, oh my God, they have so much what we call bad character, so much impurity of mind. They engage in brutish activity, right? It could be the president, it could be whatever it is. It doesn't matter the position. They might have done something great. That's why they attained that position. So this is what he's talking about. Great occasions rouse even the lowest of human beings to some kind of greatness. This is really true. Today in society, psychology, especially with young people, old people, everybody, we call it performative. I think Swamiji says in one place, what I find is that normal human beings, apply 99% of their energy to showing you what I am, and less than 1% to becoming. It's called, in today's parlance, performative. So again, let's just ask ourselves that question. What is our balance? How much do we do? Great occasions rouse even the lowest of human beings to some kind of greatness, but he alone is the really great man whose character is great always, the same wherever he be. So again, everyone think about this. Think about maybe a person you consider great. What do they have about them? How do you judge greatness? This is how Swamiji judges greatness. How do each of you judge greatness? Right, yes, rather than reacting to circumstances, talking about those who are just steady and consistent and not performative in nature. Very difficult to find. And this modern age, I would say, is much worse than at that time, because now just everybody from high to low is seeking this self-validation, this validation from others. It's, in fact, you can say karma yoga, we consider, it's not considered karma yoga till someone khub bhalo korecho. We have to hear that first, then we say, that's our significance of karma yoga. If we don't get that praise, what does that do to us? Ramakrishna in this aspect, it's in the Kautamrita, that someone said that he was saying that everybody says that Rani Rashmani built Dakshineshwar temple. Everyone says that Nobin Bhaskar Sen made the Kali image. Nobody says that God himself made this. So everybody wants that credit. Let's look at that for our own selves, and you can look at it towards others too. Whenever anyone does anything, does that come back afterwards? Now I want to add one more thing. Swamiji understood this. This is not a bad thing, by the way. We're not critiquing that. But we are saying how difficult Karma Yoga is. The second thing I want to make, which we talked about before, this is a process of purification of the mind. What does purification of the mind mean? That first we make this ego pakka, ripe ego. From the unripe, kacha ego, to the pakka ego, the ripe ego. Like Swamiji said, how can you, before giving up an ego, first build it up? Swami Ranganathanji said that many times. He used to say, I've done this, I've done that. Of course, when he said that, you never felt that. The test of it, if it's egoism or not, when somebody says, I've done this, you feel contracted. The other person will feel contracted. But he says, so Ranganathanji said, yes, I've done this, I'm building up this ego, and I shall offer that ripe ego at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna. So if you ask me, this is what Swamiji is talking about. It's not giving up the ego. This is also, aham korona, aham korona. Are Baba, then you're not giving scope for the person to grow. This is actually the path of Karma Yoga. One is this dexterity in action, being efficient. That's the outer. But then there is the subjective element of intentionality, this attitude of trying to see oneself as God, seeing others as God. Then there's the jnana part of it. After I've engaged in the action, how far did I progress? That's how many of us do that, listening or here? How many of us do that at the end of the day? My Swami Harinamananda, he's a Hindu chaplain in America. It's like chaplaincy there is something called spiritual care and counseling. He has to work 30 to 40 hours in a hospital, and he has to treat patients, critical care, don't have much time to live, from different faiths, not only Hinduism. You have to, sometimes with people, they will be very hostile towards you. Afterwards, he has to meet with the group of his peers and supervisors. Acha, did you make a connection with that person? If not, why? What were your biases when you went to meet that person? See, this self-reflection, what you call jnana, this is very much an element of karma yoga, this vichara. In fact, I would say, if we're not engaging in that, after some time frustration definitely will come. Unless you're like, there's some people I've met, very few, they love doing mother's work, they love doing Thakur's work. You can consider those, they might not have much education, whatever. You can consider them equivalent to like Brahma, like meditators who can meditate for long hours, keeping the mind in God. We're closing, so I just want to end with one Swami Hari Premanandaji. Okay, I'm going to end with an example of a disciple of Holy Mother of what we've talked about. But just I want to conclude for what we've mentioned today, the sum up. Now this is kind of let me stop the screen. Let me stop the screen sharing. Acha. Can you? Okay. Anyways, how do you start? Can you call Gadik Maharaj? Acha. Gadik Maharaj to phone call. So the question we want to ask then is, what have we talked about today? How to read this text of Karma Yoga. So the first question we have to ask ourselves when reading any text, I want all of us to remember this next time. In fact, this can apply to any scripture. What do we first look at? Context. Who, when, what, where, how, why? When was this given? 1895 to 1896? Swamiji gave it. Who did he give it to? These Americans, spiritual seekers, physicists. This makes a big difference. Agnostics. Why did he give it? He had come back from London, so he now wanted to make these 4 books of Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. He wanted to leave especially Karma Yoga as something lasting in the West. Many people were influenced by this. So this is context. Another thing is the Gita. When we look at each line, each passage, context, the Gita. I showed from the Gita 3 or 4 different types of approaches to karma. One is the path of karma to Sakshi Chaitanya, to the path of knowledge, discrimination. Another is to the path of agnosticism. Karmane vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Just focusing itself just on one thing, the means, not worrying about the ends. In fact, Swamiji says in one place, that person who can truly do that, be in the moment and just do good and just focus completely in the now, they can realize God. He said that. Another way was this yoga of equanimity, being unattached to the success and failures. The 4th way is the bhakti path, doing everything as an offering to me. Okay? So when we read each line of the Swamiji's Karma Yoga, context, the Gita. 3rd thing I want all of us to think about, relevance. What was the situation at that time? What were the challenges of Karma Yoga at that time? What are our challenges today? So at that time again, people in the West, they had just tried for making lots of money. And whether they succeeded or not, they felt frustrated. That same idea of Karma Yoga now, at India at that time was different. If you go to the lectures of Colombo to Almora, he was not speaking about this. India's needs here were different. He talked about awakening from this tamas because of this invasions and this colonial mindset. Awakening from tamas to rajas. Okay? Then sattva. There he was talking about going from rajas to sattva. But there's a caveat to that too. The caveat is this. Swamiji said people born in this land, in their blood they know Vedanta. Okay, so once you get to Rajas, the gap between Rajas and Sattva is not so much. They're at the level of Rajas, but their main thing is to take it from materialism to sattvic quality. Anyways, this is now things are more balanced out. So that's at that time. Now it's more the same everywhere. Okay, so anyway, you apply those. And then the 4th thing was the 3 different types of Gita. The 4th one was Swamiji's own unique contribution based on Sri Ramakrishna's experience, Shiva Jnana Jiva Sheva, knowing oneself as God, seeing that Shiva everywhere. Okay, so these are the 4 paths that we're going to look at. And Swamiji then talked about the idea of knowledge is not something outside, it's something inside. And the importance of knowledge that through action brings out knowledge. And that to do Karma Yoga properly, we need, what element do we need? Intentionality. Before and especially afterwards. And without that, that Karma Yoga can just remain karma for a long time. Okay. So with that, I think now we'll just take a couple of questions and then we'll be done with it. So if anyone has any questions, I'll take them now. Yes. Give the microphone, please. And then I'll look at anyone online, you can write your questions, and I'll take a look at them. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I think...
in the mic, please speak in the mic.
Yeah, I'm not quite used to it. So I think the best way for people like us, who are householders, is to offer a fruit to the Lord. I mean, the fruit of action to the Lord. That is the bhakti way. Jat karoshi jat ashnoshi, jat juhosi, dadasi jat tapasvasi kaunteya, tat kurusva madar param. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Sarvam Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. How? So, to that person, to that entity, giving everything to that entity.
Okay.
So that is I mean, that is a path for the householders. What is your take about that?
Yeah, I think that what Swamiji is saying again, that he respects everyone's temperament. So that might be for the majority of people, but he treated people as individuals. And you can even see in his interactions, it's true, Sri Ramakrishna said that for most people the path of bhakti is there. But bhakti means what, again? Even bhakti, what I'm trying to say is bhakti in karma yoga, it depends on temperament too. So it's also temperamentally. It depends on if you have a temperament more like a jnani or a bhakta. So that's an individual thing ultimately. But yes, you're right, most people have a bhakti type attitude.
Sixth chapter, Majasrita Manapartha, the sixth chapter, the opening of the sixth chapter.
Yeah.
When he says that, I just can't remember the sloka right now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that is like a sannyas yoga. That is for the sannyasi yoga.
Yeah, okay.
So that is very difficult for us, like your householders, to clear on that part, to get into that part.
Yeah. Again, I would just say that everyone has to figure that out from them. That you might be right, but this is like a challenge everyone has to figure out for themselves. And that's what I'm trying to say.
Sorry, the anasita karma phalam karma karuti yoga. So sannyasi is a yogi, na niragni na chakriya, cha akriya. So this is this thing which, like people like us, is very difficult to trade. So that is the second thing I'm trying to.
That could be, but again, everyone.
I think I could make myself clear. Right?
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, anyways, just to reply to that, everyone has to figure this out for themselves. There's not one size fits all. Even within that, everyone has to figure this out for themselves. But I do appreciate what you're saying. For the majority, you're right. But this has to be something we critically engage in. I think that that's important as well, and I agree with what you're saying. Thank you. Okay, let's see. The ancient rishis would meditate for hours and had realization, and that's how we have the scriptures, either through smritis or shrutis. So knowledge is inside our mind only when the time is ripe. It reveals and there's realization. Maharaj, is this understanding correct? So what we have. So knowledge is only when the time is ripe, it reveals and there's okay, so that's a really good point. Knowledge is inside our mind, and when the time is ripe, it reveals and there's realization. So that's a really good point. Who said that? I can't read it. Anyways. Okay. But my point to that is that Thakur said that, yes, but that's why we're talking about karma. Everything will come in time. But if you want it to come out sooner, what do you have to do? If something's within, what do you have to do? Friction is required. Friction does what? It brings out what's inside, it makes it come outside. Is that clear? So friction again causes the ego to come out. Then when we see the ego is there, then dealing with that ego, dealing with that anger, dealing with that fear, dealing with that jealousy, that person said this to me, dealing with that revenge, and reconciling that. That is actually a part of this process of karma yoga. So karma yoga is not easy at all. It's one of the most difficult paths because it brings out the ego. Okay, Pranam Maharaj, how students can practice karma yoga? So I think students, today we could just take one idea that I want to solve, what does that mean? Knowledge is within and not without. So I'd put the question back to you that, what's the name? I don't have my glasses, it's okay. Do you accept that idea that knowledge is within and not without? Definitely, but sometimes we don't. We say that, but again, you have to, again, doctor, you have to use the microphone. People are online.
Now, Feynman, the great physicist, who
You have to
won a
speak.
Nobel Prize,
Yeah.
who won the Nobel Prize, he was talking on Ramanuj. Okay. Now, the fact is, Ramanuj could get the answers of the mathematical problems by just seeing. He said that he had a goddess and she used to write for him. But Feynman said that no, there was no goddess or something like that, because he was so deeply immersed in his subject. And Feynman said, I also have those things in my dreams. Suppose the benzene ring structure, if you remember, it's a hexagonal structure. Kekulé discovered it. How he discovered it? Not by getting through books and etc., etc. He got the vision in a dream. So the books were there, the knowledge was there, that outside source, as somebody was pointing out there. But the answer came from within. Similar to Ramanuj, he was solving mathematical problems and the answers used to come from within. And therefore, all knowledge is actually internal. You have to know how to arouse it. Okay. And the great discoveries of any time, they were discovered by very keen and very deep observation of the universe or whatever it is, and then the answer came from within. So how can the knowledge be there outside?
So okay, so thank you, Dr. Tapas. Those are very good example.
ঠাকুর বলতেন কি কাঠের মধ্যেই আগুন আছে।
Yeah.
কাঠের মধ্যেই আগুন আছে। In
the firewood, Swamiji mentioned.
Yes, yes. So it is there, inherent in it, but you have to ওটা জাগ্রত করতে হবে।
So I would just say, and then we'll close with this question, but I would say that all the examples you're saying is correct, but we have to make this experience our own, not through Dr. Ramanuja. So this is something that we all have to kind of critically engage in ourselves. Let me just take this last question because I think then we'll. So let's just see one thing. Then does it mean that this character is very important to bring out the highest knowledge, self-knowledge? Can you please throw some light on this? Yeah, that's what they say. Character is very important to bring out this highest knowledge, self-knowledge. Yeah. Okay, last one. You spoke of responding rather than reacting in the moment with anger. What is the first thing I should do to achieve this? So, I think what we talked about before, that they say posture, and the main thing is awareness when we do react, whether it's internally or externally. Sometimes people don't show it externally, but they bottle it up inside. And then you know what happens? I've seen many people like this, that afterwards produces many diseases actually. Bottling up inside, that adrenaline, that cortisol gets released. People don't express it actually. So sometimes there's a misnomer. Sometimes it's actually better to express than catch it afterwards. It's actually better not to express, but rather than keeping it bottled up and brooding over it, that could even lead to more problems itself. Okay? So the main thing is awareness, whether it's external or internal, just bringing awareness to it through breathing. Okay, that's it. So with that, I'm going to conclude now. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Thank you.